yeah, no, as I was saying, I was a biker, and I was involved in a lot of shady stuff. Oh crap, we're recording, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm Dan.
And I'm Erik.
And do you know what this is? This is the Accelerativ Thrust podcast.
It is.
Did I ever tell you? I'm sure I told you where the name Accelerativ Thrust came from, right?
Mm-hmm. Future Shock.
Future Shock, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the viewers probably know, because I'm sure that I probably let them know. So if you guys, I don't know why that occurred to me like just now. Let's get back to the biker talk.
Okay.
All right. So I actually have a funny story about bikers. Okay. So a friend of mine, an old friend, I haven't seen him in a long time. Mm-hmm. And I doubt he listens to this podcast, and he probably doesn't even know about it. But I'll just say that at one time, I was hanging out with him a lot and hanging out with a lot of people that we know mutually, me and you, Erik. And anyway, so he kind of told these stories, and it was just really difficult for me to figure out if he was telling the truth or not, or exaggerating the truth. And he told me, okay, so he was at a show in Iowa City, and all of a sudden, and it was a house show in Iowa City, all of a sudden he gets a call. And this was like before cell phones, so this was like the year 2002 probably. And so, it wasn't before cell phones, but it was before everyone used the cell phone as their typical way of communicating. So landlines were still very much a thing. And so this house in Iowa City, which I'm sure you've been to, but I'm going to not name it just for the sake of concealing this person's identity.
Okay.
And anyway, they get a call at the house, and it was his dad wanting to know what time he was going to be home. And then he was like, went and talked to his dad, and then hung up because he wasn't of age yet. He was like 17 years old at this time. Hung up the phone, and then he comes up and says, I have no idea how the hell my dad got the number to this place. And I was like, you didn't give it to him? Because I figured, I know when I was in high school, my parents are just like, do you have a number we can contact you in case there's an emergency or something? You know what I mean? So that made sense to me. And he's like, no, I never tell my dad where I'm going. I'm like, okay. So he figured out the number, and I said, how the hell did he get the number then? And he said, well, my dad is friends with a lot of bikers. I said, okay, all right. And he said, yeah, they know how to get stuff. And I'm like,
wow.
Okay.
So he called in a favor to his dangerous biker friends just to know when his son was going to come home.
I guess that...
I would have saved it for something a little more important than that, but that's just me. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, what I want to know is if this thought process, and he was just saying this was a possibility, right?
Oh, okay.
So I just want to think about this scenario for a second. I need the number to where my son is right now so I can ask him, what time is he going to be home? I call my biker friends and I say, hey, I need a favor. I got $300 whatever here, $300 here, with your name on it. Seriously, think about if that really happened in his mind. Think of how that conversation had to have gone down.
Yeah, I don't I don't know if I believe this story.
But. I don't really know either. But it was entertaining. It made me really think about a lot of a lot about how the world really works.
Or at least in your friend's mind.
Well, yeah, in my friend's mind, and yeah, it's just really crazy. Like, but if that's true, I wouldn't mind becoming friends with bikers. So that way I could get any piece of information that I want.
I like it. They're like meth dealers, and they're also detectives. You know, like
right,
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thumbs up for the bikers, man. Thumbs up.
And I kind of feel like they're the kind of people that call the shots in their own life. You know, like I don't think they ever say, "Okay, I guess," like ever. They just go, "Hell no, this is the way it is." And
yeah, this is it, man.
Yeah. If they have to say even that much, you're already going to get punched out.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah,
that I never thought of it that way either. Like him like a biker responding with that voice. Like, all right, yeah, I got the address right now. It's
we found that fucking punk rock house. You want us to go kill him?
No.
Oh, you just want to know what time they're coming home? Oh, okay.
No, my son's there. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, you might have told us that before we slaughtered them all.
Yeah. Like that was what they were like.
Before I burned rubber on their faces.
Goddamn punkers.
Yeah. We don't cotton to punkers around here.
I do kind of wonder, though. I mean, there's got to be punk rockers that are into bikes, you know, like motorcycles.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, well,
yeah.
Lemmy was kind of a punk rocker, and I mean, I assume he was probably into motorcycles.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I guess
a lot of bikers liked Lemmy and Motorhead. So
yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard telling.
Idea.
So
should
maybe
we fill people in on why we're talking about this at all, or just leave them in the dark?
Oh yeah,
yeah. I broke my ankle. I broke my ankle skateboarding, and then Dan said, growing up, he wasn't into skateboarding; he was a biker.
Well,
so
okay.
That started this.
Let me slightly correct you there, Eric. I didn't say that I wasn't into skateboarding.
Oh.
I remember I specifically said that I wanted to be into skateboarding, but I couldn't.
I see. Okay,
and
sorry
so
to misquote
actually,
you.
I was kind of into skateboarding by default because I enjoyed watching skate videos.
I got
and
you.
I enjoyed watching my friends skate. But every time I did it, I would, have to like get a new leg or something.
Yeah. Which
from
is
like
where I'm at now. I have to get a new leg.
Right. So what I ended up, because it was easier for me for some reason, I was always the one whenever my friends would go out skateboarding, which wasn't very often, by the way. But whenever that did happen, because it did happen a few times, I would just take my bike.
Yeah.
That way I could keep up with them because there was no
Nice.
way I was going to be able to do it by walking.
Yeah. I just got a new bike on Saturday and then broke my ankle on Sunday. So that's
man.
That's cool. That's really, really cool world.
Well,
life.
If
Way to go.
anything, you can look at yourself as kind of a badass for it.
Kind of a bad skater, that's all.
Do you consider yourself a decent skater though?
No, not at all. I'm terrible.
Really?
No, I was not doing anything cool at all. So,
how long ago did you learn skating?
I've
Or
had a
what
few
you know?
different eras, but I first started in like 1985 probably. And then quit in about 1990. Tried it again in 2000. Tried it again in like 2011. And then now again. I guess it's like a 10-year sort of thing. Comes and goes.
Yeah.
You know.
For some reason, when I hear about the year 1990, I just automatically think of MC Scat Cat.
Yeah. That's actually why I got out of skateboarding. Because he was into it. And I didn't like MC Scat Cat. Because he likes to smoke.
He's definitely promoting bad behavior. That's
Actually,
for sure.
he's pretty cool. I wish there would have been a real cartoon about MC Scat Cat.
I really do too. He did that song with Paula Abdul, didn't he?
Yeah, Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he might be Arsenio Hall.
Yeah, on The
Maybe.
Voice.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe
Huh.
not. No, it's not. I made that up.
Okay.
But I think I didn't make it up. Arsenio Hall did do something with Paula Abdul.
Oh, I don't remember that
Musically.
at all.
I don't know what it was. Maybe he was just in the video or something.
Yeah, very
I
well.
have no
could be.
idea.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
do. I also remember that Scat Man. The
The Scat
You know,
Man.
they really, yeah. Don't you remember that song?
Yeah.
Bee ba 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 da boo, ba 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 da boo, bee ba 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 da boo.
Yeah.
I'm the Scat Man.
Yeah, it always bothered me because it was the same melody as the song Brothers from Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. And I just
Are
kind of
you
thought they
really?
ripped it off, and it made me mad.
I never knew that. I
Well, I
never
mean,
even
I-
thought to pay attention
No
to
one
anything.
else has ever thought that. I just got a problem. I got problems.
Well, that's
I-
a very that's important to know though, because that changes the whole complexity of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I don't even think they did it on purpose. It's just one of those things that I am really good at picking out where melodies are stolen from.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and
that's
there's
why
so
I
many
can't
of them.
write songs too, because I feel like I'm ripping off other songs all the time. So
The last true thing I've ever heard, well, untrue thing. The most untrue thing I've ever heard you say was that you can't write songs.
I'm not very prolific because I'll figure out that a part of the song I wrote sounds just like another song, and I'll scrap it. So it causes me a lot of scrapping of songs. So
Or scatting.
yeah, or scat or crapping.
Crapping. Yeah.
I crap out some scat songs, and it's great, good stuff.
This is kind of making me want to maybe encourage a scat revival.
God,
Because
I think
mean,
there already
hasn't-
is. Go ahead and just Google scat images, and I think you'll see that there's a lot of scat activity or scativity.
Scat activity. That's awesome.
Yeah, all of our listeners should just Google image search scat right now.
In unison.
Yeah,
Like,
do it at
it's-
work.
We cause it to be the most searched thing ever.
Yeah, do it
Somehow.
when your boss walks by, if you can help it.
Goes viral because of this damn podcast from Iowa.
No, I
So-
think there's already people out there that are pretty into it.
Oh, I'm sure. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense. There's a revival of everything these days, you know?
Yeah. And what
There's
about
even-
Scatman Struthers, The Shining? He's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
He was also
Yeah.
Hong Kong Phooey, the voice of Hong Kong Phooey.
That's so weird.
Do you remember that show?
I do remember Hong Kong Phooey.
It's
That
so
had
good.
one of the best theme songs
Yeah.
in the history of
Hong
theme
Kong Phooey, number
songs.
one.
The number one super guy. Was it the number
Super
one
guy,
super,
yeah.
super
That's it.
guy? Yeah.
That's a
He's
great
not
song.
really he's not really a guy. He's like a dog.
He's a
right?
dog. Yeah, he's like some he's like a crummy underdog. That's what he
Yeah.
looks like, if I remember right. I don't know.
Very suspicious looking, that Hong Kong Phooey guy.
Yeah.
But
And he has
yeah,
The Shining too. So that's
Yeah.
how he solved all those cases.
He's got a lot of experience in his work. I was watching Looney Tunes again late last night, and there was an episode with Foghorn Leghorn in space. I
Yeah.
had no idea that there was ever an episode with Foghorn Leghorn in space.
Did he claim the moon for the South?
He might have. I was so entranced by the visual of just seeing this rooster on, like, the best TV rooster. Because I actually went
Yeah.
back and looked at those cock-a-doodle-doo ones.
Yeah.
Or rock-a-doodle-doo, excuse me.
Rock-a-doodle. Yeah.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. Rock-a-doodle-doo ones. And I still think that Foghorn Leghorn has him beat.
Subpar rooster, animated roosters.
Well,
there.
no, they're not subpar. They're actually they're gorgeous roosters. But I mean, Foghorn Leghorn, man, the dude's got it all. The pack.
Yeah.
He knows everything. He
He's-
knows about baseball, blowing things up. He knows about dogs and chicken hawks and
Wow.
he's just a real just master of it all. And those ones from Rockadoodle, they look really great, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to watch that movie again, I guess. And
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen it. I was just looking it up, and Eddie Deason is in it. He's the
Who's
nerd
Eddie?
from what's that totally great movie, Midnight Madness? Yeah,
okay.
with Michael J. Fox. And he delivers the amazing line. He says, "Hug me," and for some reason it makes me die laughing every time. You should watch Midnight Madness. It's
I was
pretty
gonna
good.
say I've never seen that one.
It's
Never
a good
seen that
one. Yeah,
Um,
Eddie Deason's a great nerd character actor. There was a few of those in the 80s, you know.
I like that wording right there. Nerd character actor.
Oh, yeah. They're like, we need a nerd. Who are we going to get? So usually Eddie Deason. He's good. It's a good
Is
dork.
it spelled like Mr. Deason from the high school?
No,
or is
it's
it?
Deeezen.
Okay.
Pretty cool name. If he had a different head and face and voice, he probably would have been a pretty cool actor.
What if he was Eddie from Iron Maiden?
Eddie Deason.
Like,
Might
what
be.
if,
It might be. Yeah.
like all the movies you've seen him in, he's just wearing makeup to cover it all up.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't know.
Like
Wow.
that would be the most terrifying thing. He takes his makeup off and he's Eddie.
I'd be more terrified if Eddie took his makeup off and he was Eddie Deason.
Yeah,
Oh
that
my
would
God.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my
actually.
movie recommendation for this week is Midnight Madness from 1980. It's so good.
Huh?
It's
I'm
kinda
gonna have
bad, but it's pretty good. I mean, Michael J. Fox is so good. Like the other day, I just started Back to the Future 2 as like a joke almost, and I watched the whole damn thing. I was up till like 3 in the morning.
to. Well,
I just
Back to
couldn't
the
turn it off. It's so good.
Well, all three Back to the Futures, I would say, like, there was a time when, I would say, particularly the 80s, even kind of went into, like, the 90s, where, these movies had sequels that were just as good as the first one. You know what I mean? Maybe not as good as the first one. I think Back to the Future
Yeah.
qualifies. All three of those movies are just classic. And then I would also say Ghostbusters. Like both of those movies I love. The Alien trilogy.
Ghostbusters 2. Yeah.
Yeah, Ghostbusters 2 is great. And then of course you got the ultimate one, which is the Star Wars trilogy, you
Yeah.
know. But like it's Back to the Future, man. That is just such a great movie franchise.
It really is. It's much better than like Ghoulies.
Ghoulies.
Actually, Ghoulies 4 is pretty good if you ever have the chance. Pretty good.
I've never had the chance, but maybe I will.
Actually, it's really good. It's like a really solid, goofy ass puppet horror movie. But then in the middle, for some reason, they just turn it into like softcore for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. And it kind of ruins it because you can't really tell other people to watch it. 'Cause they think you're weird, you know?
Now, is that just the fourth movie you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't think there's much nudity in the first 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
They just got bored with like the whole thing, and they're just like, you know what?
Actually,
need
no,
to
it's
appeal
Ghoulies
to a
3. Sorry, that I'm
It's
talking
3,
about.
okay.
Uh,
We need to appeal
Ghoulies
to it.
Ghoulies go to college.
Like
which
I could just
they do.
imagine like the director being like, now for a new demographic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're gonna get all new people into the Ghoulies this time.
Yeah, every single person you've ever seen
Yeah,
at the late night shops.
the late night shops. Where are those?
Well, do you remember? Jeez.
I'm scared.
I don't know. Let's talk about records. Because if I
Okay.
get into a conversation about the late night shops,
Oh my God.
we won't be able to get to the records.
All right. We'll have to come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. Bonus content.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So who was first? You are first, right?
No, I was first last time.
Oh, I'm first. Okay.
Yes, you're first.
Oh,
Number
shoot.
one.
Well, number one with the bullet.
Number one.
I'm gonna go with a record called "The Real Kids." It's self-titled. It came out in 1977, and I'm always on the lookout for what I consider to be sort of a missing link in rock music, which was sort of like rock and roll and glam, and that turning into punk rock or going a different direction or whatever. Like, I really like that, the crossroads of glam. And so this sort of scratched that itch for me a little bit. The Real Kids are from Boston. They were started by John Felice, who played, I think, guitar for the Modern Lovers. He wasn't on the first Modern Lovers record, but he was their bass or guitar player before they recorded. So yeah, this is like early proto-punk, I would say, is an okay descriptor. But it's a lot closer to like the New York Dolls than the Stooges. It's like kind of, it is sort of like this moment where a few things came together, which would be glam, punk rock, and then what I would consider pub rock or just like rock and roll music. And then also, I don't know, a little bit of pop too. So yeah, there's a little bit of kind of Big Star or Cheap Trick melodies in places. But for the most part, this is something, to me, it's poppier than, say, like Richard Hell, but it's a little more aggressive than, say, Cheap Trick or the New York Dolls, and stuff like that. I would say if you like this kind of stuff, if you're really into the Dolls, the Stooges, Eddie and the Hot Rods, things that are sort of take up this, maybe even the Damned, and yeah, things like that to an extent, like before punk rock became punk rock. An interesting side note is this band sort of fell apart after this record came out, and John Felice became a roadie for the Ramones, so that's cool. It shows that he was at least aware of punk rock, even though it's not fully on display here. But I think the songs are really good for the most part. They do show a lot of that middle ground of what would become punk rock. 50s style rock and roll played more aggressively. There are some goofy ass songs, you know. Anytime you're playing rock and roll and you're really going for it, I think that can be kind of goofy, or corny or whatever. A couple of the songs do have sort of offensive slurs, and I think that was just kind of the time that it came out in. I'm not justifying it by any means, but I just think it's a lot more common. You listen to things like Fear, and there's all kinds of slurs in there too. But for the most part, yeah, it's just kind of really, I thought, really good rock and roll, proto-punk, almost early ideas of pop punk too. They cover a Buddy Holly song, which covering a 50s song, especially a Buddy Holly song, became sort of a standard in punk rock and pop punk especially. So I don't know if you're into that stuff. If you want to talk about the origins of punk at ground zero, I think this is one of those things that was right there. So yeah, what'd you think, Dan?
Yeah, this was everything you said about it. I couldn't have said any better, because it instantly, when I heard the first song, you know, I heard the Stooges, I heard the MC5, and I also heard, T-Rex and Exile on Main Street, Rolling Stones, kind of, sort of, and definitely the early like pop punk that you're talking about. And there's a lot of the songs I think are about, just like you said, kind of goofy, kind of seemed to be about maybe drugs and getting laid. Glam rock, definitely hear the New York Dolls, but it's really good stuff. Yeah, I definitely picked up on the slurs you were talking about.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like you said, it just, I guess it just came out at a much more politically incorrect time, where, you know, unfortunately that kind of stuff was a little more acceptable than it is now. But it's still really great, just American rock and roll. Or are they American?
Yeah, they're from Boston.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Actually, that makes a lot of sense because I heard, like, I figured it was either an East Coast thing or a Detroit thing, one of the two. But yeah, just really good rock and roll. And it just sounds like if you were around to see them live, you probably would have been covered in beer by the time, you know, the show was over. Yeah, it was really good stuff. There were a couple of songs which I can't recall the titles of that I really, really liked.
Yeah, there's some really great melodies on there too.
Yeah, so. I mean it's even like I could see like Replacements maybe being somewhat influenced by these guys. You know?
Oh yeah.
I think, what year did this come out?
77.
So 77. So that was actually. So he went on to become a roadie for the Ramones.
Yeah, this band, as it was, kind of fell apart right when this came out. So
sure, and 77, that was when the first Ramones record came out too, right?
Yeah, okay, and the first Cheap Trick record, and
Cheap Trick, yes. Oh yeah, no, and I definitely heard all of that, but it definitely had its own thing going on, which was really fantastic. Yeah. So it's interesting that this record came out because it sounds like, you know, all the proto-punk that you talk about, the MC5 and the Stooges, but it came out at the same time that, like, punk rock as we now know it was just in its infancy.
Right. Yeah. This was probably kind of this was probably like the last death rattle of this sort of hard-edged pub rock kind of, beer-soaked rock and roll kind of thing before it became crystallized through the sound of the Ramones and the look of Richard Hell. So yeah, but as a time capsule, I think it's cool. And I don't know if anyone else is interested in this kind of stuff. I don't think anyone is, but also the lineage of something like this, say to Faster Pussycat or LA Guns or Poison or something like that.
Definitely.
Which I love all that stuff.
Yes.
And Motley Crue, early Motley Crue.
Yep.
Like, I think this could easily be a stepping stone to that too. I think that was sort of another separation when you get out to LA early 80s. I don't think they were doing much different than what the Dolls were doing.
No, not at all. In fact, if you watch any documentary with Motley Crue, because they were Motley Crue was kind of, I would say, sort of the first 80s glam metal band. Yeah. I mean, I
agree with that. Because Van Halen might have been first, but they weren't exactly metal either.
No, and they predated like the 80s. So Motley Crue, I would say, was like the first like disgusting human beings playing, you know, that you don't want your daughters to go backstage and meet.
Right.
Just, you know, horrible people playing, you know, really raunchy like rock and roll, but dressing up like Satan.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's like Too Fast for Love. I didn't realize how old that record. I thought that came out in like 87.
Oh, it's such a good record.
Came out in like 82.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And it was like the first that it really, I think Motley Crue kind of jump-started that. But you go back and you watch documentaries with Motley Crue or really any member of an 80s glam metal band, they almost always cite the New York Dolls as the main influence.
Absolutely. I don't think they were doing much different than that. Like, it was
no,
just...
they really weren't.
And especially... And I just really like this band, too. But Faster Pussycat, especially musically... I mean, it's just rock and roll. Like...
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I think that's cool. I think that, it would have been cool if other glam bands wouldn't have been so shitty that we have to throw the entire genre in the trash, you know?
Right.
But you almost do, and that's fine too. Like,
sure,
whatever. I don't have to sit around defending Faster Pussycat my whole life, but
no.
yeah, there is some good stuff out there if you want to dig. That's all.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, I'm going to talk. The first one I'm going to talk about is the self-titled album from this group called Beak, and it's actually Beak with like that bigger, smaller symbol to the left. And I don't know what. Do you know what that's called?
I
by any chance?
think greater than points
So it's
to the right, like away from
yes,
the word beak.
You're right.
I think.
Hold on a second. No, I'm looking at it, and it looks to me like the greater than points to Beak.
Oh, okay. All right. So less than.
At least in this thing that I'm looking at, this thing could have gotten it wrong. But maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. Don't listen to me, guys. Anyway, so Beak. But what is that symbol just called the greater than symbol?
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Okay.
the greater than.
So Beak greater than?
Yeah.
Like I
I think
doubt
it just
that's
is supposed to look like a beak, maybe. So.
Oh, never thought of that.
Yeah.
Beak. That's a really, really good point. So anyway, Beak, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I've got to ask you, Eric. Have you ever heard of this? Okay, you have. Okay. Because
No, I've never heard of this before you picked it. No.
Oh, you seriously never have?
Nope.
Like, okay, and this is such a coincidence because I had been listening to this record off and on for a few years now because it came out on Ipecac. And I just revisited it not too long ago. And I come to find out that Jeff Barrow from Portishead is like the main guy behind it.
Nice.
Did you know that?
Not until you picked it, and I sort of looked into it a little bit. Yeah.
And not only that, but there's also a guy from Massive Attack, Billy Fuller. So it's like this side project kind of all these trip hop sort of, I guess, legends, for lack of a better term. Or I guess a better word would be just musicians. But anyway, but you know what I'm saying. Like a lot of people really look up to these guys, in the trip hop world and whatnot. That being said, this record is almost the furthest thing from trip hop. It's really, it's got elements of both of those bands, maybe, just maybe a tad bit, but really what I think this record, to me anyway, is kind of rooted in is a lot of krautrock, psychedelic, and maybe even a little bit of like stoner rock, doom type stuff. I hear a lot of Can kind of going on in the, some of the repetition in some of the tracks. There's also some really nice chanting that kind of goes on that I think really fits really well with the whole aesthetic. But then I also hear some weird, almost like electronic synthy, psychedelic type stuff, which actually puts me in mind of like Wet Hair and a lot of the Night People stuff that Sean used to put out. And then I also hear elements of something like Ohm or Sleep or, there's one song in particular that has just a really driving, crunchy bass. And they're just playing this like progression on a synthesizer, and it just sounds freaking awesome. And I love the drums. One of the things that I found interesting, and I didn't know this until looking into it when I picked this last week, is that most, if not all of this record was pretty much improvised. And you can kind of tell that. There's a lot of just sort of sounding like they're jamming kind of going on. And I guess they kind of went into this project with that idea. They kind of just wanted to do something that was, just sort of on the spot, loose. They both had been in groups, I'd imagine, Portishead and Massive Attack, where they really focused on, some of the structures within those songs a lot more than like this project, I would suspect. And it really sounds like that. Mm-hmm. There's I guess there's a little bit of editing that happened after the recording, but that barely counts, and it's just, I just think it's a really, really interesting record. I've always liked it. And what did you think, Eric?
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. It's very, very krautrock. I mean, just 100%. Like, if someone told me these were canned outtakes, I would just be like, oh yeah, cool, great. Like, but it's awesome. I love the way it's presented. I love the way it's done. There's elements of no wave stuff in there too, like Section 25 or Tuxedo Moon, or a lot of that stuff that has a lot of bass up front in the mix. But yeah, it is just a lot of can, harmonia, cluster. I mean, all that stuff. Lots of not really big fat synth sounds, but more like those sort of organ sounds you would have heard in the krautrock stuff. And I think that's cool. And I didn't actually know it was all recorded live, but in my notes I wrote, it seems like improvisation at points, especially with the vocals. So I picked up on the fact that this was being created in real time. So I would say it comes through, pretty clearly, but it also makes it really interesting. I like things that are subdued on one hand and then completely out of control on the other, like this stuff is mellow, but it could go off the rails instantly because they don't know what they're playing. And that adds an element of excitement to it. It's really repetitive, as it should be. It's perfect for that. It's droney. It has a lot of movement, though. And honestly, the drums and the vocals are so can-like that I can't quite get away from it. But I don't really want to. I love can, and I love the idea of hearing new things that sound sort of like that or like heavily influenced by it. So, this was a big surprise to me. I hadn't heard of it, hadn't heard it. All I did was look at the sort of about at the bottom of the Spotify thing, and it said a member of Portishead was in it. I was like, oh, okay. And that's kind of all the research I did because I didn't want to know too much about it. But yeah, I really liked it. Like, if you like any of the krautrock stuff, even, some elements of Hawkwind or whatever, but definitely can and cluster. I thought it was great, and I will definitely be returning to it. Did they have another record out too, or just the one?
They actually have 4 records total out.
Okay. I guess you can be prolific when you don't have to write anything.
Yeah. Well, the I'm not quite sure, but the second record sounds like maybe there was a little more studio stuff of maybe going on, but I don't really know.
Gotcha.
Also, all of their albums have kind of variant versions of some songs that were on the first record.
Oh, okay.
And then, you know what I mean? So they kind of do, they do new versions.
I see.
But then they also do completely new songs, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
So maybe they kind of view it as I don't know, like, I guess if I was doing a project kind of like this, I'd be like, all right, well, these songs can be kind of considered like a continuous work,
Right.
you know, or something like that. Maybe that's the thing, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But every single thing I've listened to, their third album was actually a soundtrack to a film.
Okay.
And
Cool.
it's really cool stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't all, like, every album I've listened to doesn't really sound too different. It doesn't, you know,
Right.
go too far. It doesn't drift too far away from this first album. So if you like the first album, I think you'll like all the rest of the stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I loved it. So I'll be checking it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And I do have to say, while we're talking about the greater than symbol, I know that Soul Coughing probably isn't that cool to most people these days, but I always really liked them. And one of my favorite lyrics from them, and in turn one of my favorite lyrics in a song, is her knees thrust in one direction like a symbol of math, a symbol meaning greater than.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's
I always thought it was just really smart.
Hold on, let me guess what song that is. Is it off of Ruby Vroom?
I think it is. Oh snap! What is that? Is it that Soft Serve song?
That's what I was thinking. It was either Soft Serve or Sugar Free Jazz. One of the
Yeah,
two.
I don't remember the exact song.
And Soft Serve. I think it is Soft Serve
might
because
be.
that's the second song off of Irresistible
Yeah,
Bliss.
it's a great record.
Boy, talk about a band that really carved their own lane for a while.
Yeah. Like man, I wish they wouldn't have rapped so much. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
You know, there's songs that just kill, like True Dreams of Wichita or whatever.
Oh gosh.
And then
Janine,
just in the middle, it just like starts rapping, and I'm like, oh no, now I can't play this for anyone else.
yeah, there was definitely an element of just sort of. Excuse me. There was definitely well, that's what the element was.
Right.
But really, there was phlegm. There was an element of phlegm, but no, there definitely was an element of sort of cheesy, sort of like bluesy rap, I guess, or something.
It was very of the time, you know.
Yeah,
what
very,
can you do
very.
about
It was something that only Beck was able to make timeless, I feel.
Yeah, I would agree with that to an extent. I mean, I can't think of anyone else offhand, but yeah, it's a hard thing. I mean, we talked about that with Portishead with the scratching. You know, it's like you can't go back and take it out, but I don't know. It'd be a lot more timeless if you could. You know?
Definitely, but for some reason, Beck, Odelay, and Mellow Gold both sound just as fresh today as I think they did back in the 90s.
I think so too. Maybe it was the irreverence of it all, you know, like he wasn't taking it seriously, so we didn't have to either, you know, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that was clear at the end of the song Hot Wax, where he's like, who are you? I'm the enchanting wizard of rhythm. I came to tell you about the rhythms of the universe.
Duh. Oh my god.
That was such a funny record.
Yeah. I like these
all
little
right.
mini reviews we're giving in between.
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty cool.
I really actually would recommend, though, like, in all honesty, before Beck became sad, everything that he did in the 90s, to me, was just stellar. Even the bad stuff. Even the bad stuff was great.
Yeah.
Because it was so unapologetically, like, just, I guess, not caring at all.
Yeah.
It was just so unapologetically, like, ridiculous to the point where it just, you could relate to it. Like, in ways that I feel like I've tried to be that, I guess, fucked up for a way to, like, for lack of a better term. And it's just, there's something that Beck achieved doing that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm going on.
Yeah. No, that's why I've
on a
been a
rant.
juggalo all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah, ICP just got me in a way that no other music ever has. I mean, I just related with it just right out of the gate. I was like, I like soda and murder and clowns.
Did you ever go to the gathering?
No,
Okay.
I never have been so lucky.
There is a fantastic documentary, mini doc, of Danny Brown
Oh, yeah?
going to the gathering.
Oh,
He was
snap.
invited to play, and it is fantastic.
All right,
He's
I will
sitting
check
there.
that out.
He is sitting there backstage, and he's all like, he starts listing off all of the Faygo pops.
Yeah.
He's all like, because they got some really interesting names. What is it? Oh, geez, cream soda. He's what's there's so many other ones. Rock and rye. And he's saying it just like that. He's all like, I love soda. That stuff is really, really good. And then, he gets on stage like 2 minutes later and he's just killing it. And then he's all like riding around on a golf cart, like around, like the Juggalos. And there's actually a lot of documentaries about the gathering
Yeah, I've
of the
seen a
Juggalos
couple of them.
that are just like, they're fantastic. And honestly, like, and I'm not kidding, it actually did heighten my respect level for like ICP, like in a way that because in high school, like I didn't look at them as like, I don't know. I looked at them in a completely different way than I do now. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think they just, they're goofy and they're fairly offensive. And the fact that they came out with a song years and years later professing that the whole thing had been about them being Christians and trying to save people by being offensive, kind of, I don't know. I didn't really like that, but they have worked really hard for it. They had a vision and they worked to make it a reality. And no one can really take that away from them.
And if nothing else, the story of them getting dropped by Disney on the first, did you hear about that?
No.
So their big album, The Great Malenko.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They got signed to Disney Records. And just on the idea that they were clowns. Like, and they put out The Great Malenko, and Disney's like, holy shit, we're not putting this out in stores. So the record got pulled, and they made the news because of that. And that's what started essentially the Juggalo culture that we know now. That was what really thrust them into the limelight.
Yeah.
I think that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That whole story.
Cool.
Yeah, and they started out as just a gangster rap band. Like, their first album sounded like Ice-T.
Yeah.
And then they started with the horrorcore later.
Yeah, I didn't get into them until Riddlebox in 1995 or something.
Riddlebox is actually a damn...
It's pretty cool.
I don't really think the people who just bash ICP, I don't think they've ever really actually listened to them.
No, there is a lot to bash.
There is. No. But it's more
deservedly so. But musically, they're pretty cool. I think they're cool.
But I think the stuff to bash is more about like the people maybe who the culture more so than the actual music itself.
Yeah.
But even then it's like, I don't know. Like, one of the things that I kind of enjoyed about watching those documentaries was these were just people who were just like out there mostly, I think. Obviously there's some really terrible people in any situation where there's big groups that you want to stay away from. But like, they just kind of seemed like they were just there to kind of have a good time for a weekend.
Yeah.
Not to mention too that ICP has really good taste in hip hop. They had everybody from Kool Keith to KRS-One play that thing. Yeah. And so it's really interesting. Yeah. And hell, Cannibal Corpse played it.
Yeah, if I ever get too down on them, I just pretend it's Jason Mewes from Jay and Silent Bob and Guy Fieri, and then everything's fine.
Well, what about the singer of Smash Mouth?
Yeah, I guess they're all the same, right?
Yeah, and you've never seen them all in
No.
the same area.
That's true.
I used to think
It's
that
like just a list of my greatest heroes right there.
I used to think that the other guy, because we're talking about Violent J, I think. Who's the other guy? Shaggy 2 Dope.
Yeah, Shaggy.
I used to think that Shaggy 2 Dope looked like a friend of mine, and he
the dad
I
with
saw
or
him.
the friend with the biker dad.
Well, and then I actually saw him without the makeup, and I'm like, yeah, he doesn't look anything like him.
Well,
it's
lucky for
amazing
your
what
friend.
makeup can do.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Anyway.
this podcast is now going to be about ICP. We've decided to just stop reviewing
And
records.
neither of us know shit about ICP or even really listen to them.
We're just going to tell you the history through our perspective.
Yeah, I'm not really a juggalo. That was a lie. So
Yeah, well,
maybe
I was going to... You weren't supposed to tell them, Eric. I want people to be like, dude, this is really weird. These guys are into, like, Portishead, Beak, and ICP.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Although I was being honest about liking, especially Riddlebox. It was a great record. And
yeah, it really
Great
is.
Malenko was good too. Speaking of great records, we should move on. Oh my God.
Yeah, we really
this
should.
Is too much. So my second choice
I'm sorry, I just had to laugh.
is a group called O Children. Just the letter O and then Children. This is their self-titled record. Came out in 2010. Oh Children, the name of the band, is a reference to a Nick Cave song, also called Oh Children. So that makes sense. Oh Children is a London-based, for lack of a better term, I would say neo-goth. I think that is a pretentious and stupid sounding label, but that's all I could really come up with because it really is. It's like updated goth. It's a combination of a few things. It's like Joy Division. It's especially with the guitars. They have a lot of twangy guitars and a lot of strummed acoustics. So a lot like The Church or Echo and the Bunnymen. A lot like other neo-goth kind of groups like She Wants Revenge. Not quite as slick and new wavy as She Wants Revenge. But yeah, so this is really gothy. It's really atmospheric. The singer's name is Toby, and he has a very deep baritone voice. It reminds me of Orville Peck. It reminds me of Ian Curtis. It reminds me of Nick Cave, which makes sense. I would say his enunciation is really similar to Nick Cave. But yeah, it's twangy and it's gothy. I mean, it is an amalgamation of all the goth that's kind of come before. Sisters of Mercy's in there, The Cure, all kinds of stuff. But it's done in a way that if you've never listened to that stuff, you wouldn't think that this was like a ripoff or wasn't good on its own. I think the songs are really cool. Again, the lead singer's voice is really cool. The synthesizers are cool. A lot of string and swelling pad kind of synth sounds. It is really dark, but I would say that it's not really like violent or death obsessed. So it's a little different than some avenues that goth goes down. And yeah, I think that it is just poppy enough that you could actually put it on and enjoy it, drive around listening to it. I know when I say goth, it probably conveys this idea of it just being sad, but it's not. There's a lot of other things going on here. No wave, punk rock, synth pop. I mean, there's elements of Gary Newman in this. It's really just, younger people who found all these older groups and styles intriguing and kind of put it all together. But I think it's a fun listen. I think they, as far as I know, they only have 2 records, and the one after this is super good too. So, a lot of fun if you like really deep voiced goth music. So, what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, this was the baritone is just so deep to like almost like crazy levels.
Yeah.
Like I think he might have the deepest baritone I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's like
it's
on
just,
par with Peter Steele from Type O.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was going to actually compare it to.
Sorry.
To me, no. That's fine because that's great that you said that because that's exactly who I thought that this and the guy from the Crash Test Dummy.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he's got a deep
Even though
one.
the Crash Test Dummy obviously was not goth in any way whatsoever, but that tone of voice, and yeah, the songs were just really, really gloomy sounding. But like you said, there seemed to be like, there definitely was some sadness on this record for sure. Like maybe there's a couple of songs that sounded like he was singing about a breakup or something, maybe. But yeah, there also seemed to be some glimmer of hope in some of those lyrics, or at least like kind of trying to look up from, you know what I mean? It wasn't all like, oh, I'm gonna slit my wrist or whatever.
Right,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
That sort of thing.
Yep.
But it was definitely a very gloomy. It wasn't like the early Cure records. Or something like that, where
Right, more like Disintegration, probably.
yeah, exactly. Like if you're going to compare it to that, I also definitely heard some Bajas going on in here. Glenn Danzig in the vocals as well, a little bit.
I can see that.
Definitely like a really just amazing, gorgeous record. I would say, like production wise, like the instrumentation. It was just perfect for what was going on. The Nick Cave thing, that makes total sense. If you're into all that stuff, Joy Division, The Cure, Typo Negative, I mean, I would even say, like you said, The Damned. I would even say maybe to a certain extent, like stuff like Interpol. Like if you're talking more of a modern sort of comparison, this is the record for you, or Him, or something like that, kind of. I mean, the guy from Him doesn't really have the deep voice, but I heard a little bit of that sort of sound in the music. Very gorgeous. Also maybe a little bit of like something like Echo and the Bunnymen going on in the production too. It's just all kinds of stuff. This almost just sounded to me like a greatest hits of like just goth,
Right.
like basically like they were just like, let's make a record that pays homage to all of our favorite bands that sound like this genre, but not in a cheesy way or not even in a way where it's like, we're going to just totally rip these guys off.
Yeah.
It was like, no, it sounds like Oh Children, but it sounds like these guys have done their homework in the genre.
I think so too. And thank goodness that it doesn't sound like it, because although I love goth music, some of the bands that have a really cool sound, I think their songs kind of suck. Like, I don't want to get in a fight with anyone, but like London After Midnight or Sisters of Mercy, Christian Death for the most part. I know that only Theater of Pain is untouchable, and that's fine, but a lot of the songs are just not very well written songs, and I think with this they are. Like, these are good songs. I think you can sing along and have fun with them. So
sure. Fantastic cool stuff. I really like this pick, Erik.
Nice.
Okay, so my last pick is a record from Rancid called Life Won't Wait, and I am a huge Rancid fan. Always have been since I was probably 12 years old. Because basically, I credit Rancid with getting me into punk rock. I mean, I guess I was listening to Green Day before Rancid, and I would also credit Green Day, but Rancid was really the first time that I saw guys that looked like Rocksteady and Bebop from the Ninja Turtles playing like real, like, or, much more, I shouldn't even say real. I hate using that word, but aggressive, more aggressive punk rock than Green Day, even though Rancid has always retained this amazing sense of melody and harmony through their records. This record is just, to me, a fantastic record. It's very it's, first of all, one thing that really makes it stand out in the Rancid catalog is that it is the only record from Rancid that doesn't have any production whatsoever from Brett Gurewitz of Bad Religion, because he pretty much produced at least one song on every other Rancid record. So this record was completely self-produced by Lars Fredriksson and Tim Armstrong. And what they did, which I think is really cool, is they split the recording between California, I think Los Angeles, and they also recorded some stuff in New York City and New Orleans and in Jamaica, which doesn't surprise me because there's a huge reggae influence on this record. Like, it's undeniable. And what I really like about it is they really kind of explore the roots of their reggae influences on this record a lot more than, like, say, on an Out Come the Wolves, like with Time Bomb, which is a great song. But the first two Rancid records really had nothing to do with ska. The first self-titled and the second one, Let's Go, were both just pretty much gutter punk, but like with a almost like, I don't want to say pop, but just a melodic sensibility about them, you know? Songs like Salvation. And I think maybe that had to do with the fact that Tim and Brett probably kind of wanted to get away from their identity they had with Operation Ivy for a little bit, and focus on just, punk. And then without Out Come the Wolves, which was a monster of an album too, Time Bomb kind of revisited their roots in ska. But with Life Won't Wait, they actually recruit like actual reggae artists to collaborate with them, like on the title track. The reggae artist, now I might sabotage the pronunciation here, but Buju Banton, I think, or Buju Banton, who I'm not sure who that is. Do you know who that is, Eric?
No.
And there's just a lot of really great songs on this record and a lot of really great production, and it sounds like the places where they're recording. There's parts that sound like New Orleans. There's parts that sound like New York, parts that sound like LA, parts that sound like Jamaica. And so it definitely has a resemblance to something like London Calling or even Sandinista. The Clash comparisons, I mean, I wouldn't compare Rancid to the Clash, but the influences are definitely inevitable. There's definitely some of the gutter punk, sort of the heaviness going on, like songs like Blood Clot and 1998, which is I think is one of the most underrated Rancid songs, or just even punk rock songs in general. But there's also moments of just pure gorgeousness and beauty on this record. Like, who would have thought is just a straight up like love song that sounds like it could have been like a Tom Waits song had it been slowed down a little bit, played on piano. And I mean, you can't really say like, more gravelly voice, because Tim Armstrong already has the gravelly voice,
Sure.
So I mean, you can't really like say that. But then you got like just really great melodic like ska songs like Hooligans, and then you got songs that sound like, I don't know, like they almost tread on like almost like, I don't know, like Bob Dylan or Neil Young with like more speed and distortion or something, like The Wolf, or like there's definitely like an undeniable like kind of almost like blues influence going on and rockabilly influence and all types of things like on this record. I feel like this is the one record where they just kind of needed to get kind of out of their system. maybe. Which actually, I would say this record, and I would also put an Out Come the Wolves before this, and then the record that followed this, which is the second self-titled record, also known as Rancid 5 or Rancid 2000, which was a straight up hardcore record. Like they went from like this to like straight up hardcore for like one record. Those are the two records where it just felt like Rancid just needed to get some stuff off their chest. And there's also a lot of like political type stuff on this record. So there goes the Clash influence again. Lady Liberty, I mean, that's straight up just like almost like 60s soul music or something. It's just utterly fantastic. This entire record, I remember the first time I heard it, I heard this way before I heard the Clash. Besides Rock the Casbah and Should I Stay or Should I Go and all of the London Calling, all of the hits. I never actually listened to London Calling or Sandinista till well after high school. But so this was the first time I heard punk rock in those types of areas. Like, this is the first time I kind of figured out that, okay, so the ska thing does make a lot more sense because basically ska is reggae chords sped up, with horns, And so there is a connection between Bob Marley and, I don't know, Minor Threat, or something like that. And, I feel like a lot of their peers couldn't even touch a record like this.
Oh, yeah.
I love this record. What did you think, Erik?
Yeah, I love this record too. I was not a Rancid fan during the time that all that this was happening. Like I had heard maybe like Time Bomb and Ruby Soho, because those were popular songs. But I didn't actually hear this until probably about the year 2001. I was introduced to it by Ben Driscoll and Brooks Strauss. They were starting a band and they were like, oh, we kind of wanted to sound like this, but like rock and roll or whatever too. And so that ended up being the Heart Attacks, which I would think you would be hard pressed to hear Rancid in the Heart Attacks music. But regardless, this is one of the things they played for me. And also my wife, Sarah, was really into Rancid all through high school and loved this album. So I kind of came to the party late, but I think that sort of helped me because I didn't have any like nostalgic element to it. I didn't have memories of high school or whatever associated with these songs. So I just kind of got to hear them as songs, as the songs they are, And this record's amazing. I mean, and Out Come the Wolves is amazing too. Like, I sort of feel like both of these records are so long and have so many songs that they could have just like turned those two records into 4 records and still had one of the best punk rock discographies of all time. They could have just like, I can't believe they fit all of this on Life Won't Wait. It's like, it's beyond a greatest hits, And
Absolutely.
Out Come the Wolves is the same way. It's like both of these somehow are like two Rancid greatest hits, volume 1 and 2, essentially is how it feels to me. And no, it's amazing. The songs are so cool. Just like you said, from the Sound of Hooligans to, Who Would Have Thought? Like, they're covering so much ground here, and so much of it's like really cool too, though. Like there is a lot of ska and there is a lot of punk rock and there's a lot of rockabilly, especially with Tim's guitar playing and stuff, and none of it comes off as phoned in or fake or a money grab or trying to be cool. Like, it all feels really legit, and I think that's why Rancid was and is such a popular band, is like at no point do I feel like they're phoning this in or it's fake or this is an image or whatever. Like, I just feel like this is their life, and they're just recording songs about it. And it went on. I didn't personally care that much for the second self-titled one. I thought of it sort of as a step backwards after Life Won't Wait, but maybe they felt like after being so melodic, they needed to sort of prove to themselves that they could still, be aggressive and I don't know, guttery,
Yeah.
But then even like by the time Indestructible comes out, still awesome, still amazing. And
oh yeah.
so I just feel like Rancid's got to be just looked at as one of the best punk rock bands probably ever. I would hold their discography up to almost anyone, and I think it would
Definitely.
be fine, and they would win, So
Yeah, no,
I love it. I think that this, along with And Out Come the Wolves, is them at their strongest and most unstoppable and most self-aware and self-realized. And yeah, it's just an amazing record. So
I would even put Let's Go
yeah,
in that. I mean, I think Let's Go is an amazing record. And even honestly, for me, their first 6 records are 6 of the best punk rock records ever made. Like, to be honest. I mean, I disagree with you on the Rancid 2000, but I can definitely see that perspective on it because it was so unapologetically. First of all, like most of the songs were like under like a minute and a half, and there on those songs there really wasn't a lot of melody. But then you had a song like Let Me Go or Black Derby Jacket where you could tell that they still were holding on to sort of like Life Won't Wait and Out Come the Wolves, and then Indestructible to me kind of felt like the culmination of everything they've done.
That makes sense.
And it's still a great record. But to me, it's the trilogy. It's and Out Come the Wolves, Life Won't Wait, and Rancid 2000, because those are the 3 most different sounding records. Like they don't even sound almost like the same band at times.
I can see that.
It's just so incredible. Like, yeah, I'm so glad you said that because I think Rancid is just untouchable.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to like a punk band that started in the 90s.
Yeah, that for sure. Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I probably need to revisit Rancid 2000 anyway. I only listened to it a few times when it came out, and I was like, not for me.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely is not. Like, I'm sure that there's some people that think it's probably their best record because of those are probably, people who like hardcore punk. And so they were blown away that they were doing something like that. This is the same band that did Time Bomb 5 years ago, But then there are probably those that didn't really like that record or, because of that, because it's just maybe a little too stepping out of like their comfort zone,
Yeah, I'll revisit it. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
At a later date.
Let me know what you Let me know what you think of it. I'd be very interested in hearing what your thoughts are after revisiting it.
Did you ever listen to Common Rider? Just as a side note.
No.
It's
no.
that other dude from Operation Ivy, Jesse Michaels.
Jesse, the singer?
Yeah, it's his group.
Really?
It's pretty cool.
No, I never.
Well, the first record came out in like '99, Last Wave Rockers. It's pretty good. I mean, I remember it being good. I don't know. I should be current with things before I suggest them, but I enjoyed it.
I'm actually going to make a very controversial statement. I'm not nearly as into Operation Ivy as I am Rancid. And so that I still like it. I understand the importance of it. I understand how important and seminal Operation Ivy is. I would say they're way more important than Rancid when you talk about influence, you know. But I was not into it as much as Rancid, and I don't know. I get the same type of response when I say that I like Fugazi way more than I like Minor Threat.
Yeah,
you know,
I get it.
But
yeah.
I mean, Operation Ivy had some great stuff, though. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Well, again, it's one record that's basically a greatest hits. So.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with Operation Ivy. I'm not saying I hate it, but I think Rancid, when it comes to pure musicality, just runs circles around.
Oh, well, yeah,
and
I would agree with that. And I would agree with the Fugazi thing, too. The same way.
That's also very, very, almost unfair of me to say, though, because Operation Ivy lasted only like a couple of years.
And they were, baby kids.
Exactly. As did Minor Threat.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that say that I've actually gotten like people like, get really upset with me when I say
wow.
that. Like it's so weird how defensive people get about even if they're just not talking about pure musicality of something. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's hard to get people to talk about things devoid of their feelings.
Exactly.
Because that's what we do. We associate our feelings and therefore sort of our personality with things. And so when you don't necessarily see eye to eye with someone, they take it personally, and that's I don't know. That's too bad because it's not really like that,
No, not at all. And I used to be that way all the time. Like when I was 19 years old, if somebody tried to tell me that Big Black sucked or something, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would just...
And now you're like, yeah, they kind of do, but I like them.
No, actually, it is funny because I had a conversation with our mutual friend, Tim. He actually, I told him that I was really shocked that he was into Big Black as much as he was, because it is so non-musical, like on purpose.
Right.
Like that's what Albini was going for. And normally, as you know, Tim doesn't really like a lot of that kind of stuff. And so, and then I listen to Big Black now, and it's like, this is still pretty amazing stuff, but it definitely, like, I could see why people fucking didn't think it was the coolest thing in the world when I forced them to listen to it.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think it's a good thing to learn, as you get older, but also it's a great thing not to know when you're young. Like, you should defend the things you love when you're young, like, to the point of fighting about it. I mean, because it does sort of define you. It's it's the things that you've found in the world that you feel close to and feel like they do represent you a little bit. And it's sort of before you find those things within yourself. And so you kind of need external representations of who you are, And I think that, I mean, when I was young, oh my God, I would fight all the time about music. Like, and now I'm a little too agreeable. That's what I've heard from some people that listen to our podcast. They're like, are you guys ever going to review something you don't like? So, but whatever, maybe sometime we will. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I'm probably the same fucking way. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's really been anything that I've said, oh, I fucking hate this.
Right. Well, I think it's because as you get older, it's like, well, aspects of this I do like, and then aspects I don't like. And honestly, the things I don't like, they didn't really have me in mind anyway. Like, they didn't make it for
exactly.
It doesn't do me any good to be like, man, you know what's fucking lame? My Little Pony. Like, who cares? Who cares about my opinion on that?
True.
You know what I mean? And it's the same with music. It's like, if there's something I really don't care for, it's probably because the people that made it didn't give two shits about what I think, And who cares? Yeah. Just move on to something you do like.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Definitely.
A little rant.
So,
there. Oh, well.
So, now, yep. Hey, that's what this podcast is for.
Little rants.
Little rants. Remember the the candy.
I know.
Runts.
That's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of banana rants.
Yeah, whatever happened to Runts, man?
I think you can still buy them. They started to make just the bananas. You could buy just bags of bananas. But that was the one I didn't like the most, I think.
Did you hear that Lucky Charms started selling just the marshmallows?
Oops, all marshmallows.
Yeah, that probably. I don't know. But no, you have to special order them, and it comes in like a huge bag.
Damn.
Like it's like I don't know. People spend their life savings on it.
That's a lot of mojo right there. That's a lot of Lucky Charms. You could
covered marshmallows.
Yeah, you could really put some curses on people and love charms and things. Yeah. Isn't that what Lucky Charms is used for? Magic? No. The cereal. That's what I used it for when I was young. In my
to curse people.
You know, in my rituals. No.
I don't know. I usually used it for eating.
Oh, that should. I should have done that. Makes way more sense.
Do you remember? Okay, before we get on to the local release, since we're on the topic of food, cereal specifically, do you remember S'mores Grams?
No, I don't think I ever had that.
Oh, that was the best cereal in existence.
Damn.
Like, honestly, that would be my whole reasoning for getting a time machine. So that I could go back and ruin history by opening up a new box of S'mores Grams. It was so good. It was like Golden Grams, but it had like a chocolate dusting and then these marshmallows and little chocolate pieces. Oh, it was so good.
Did you?
Like I can just
chocolate dust. I thought you said angel dust. That's what I used to put on my Golden Grams.
Yeah. Well, PCP.
Yep.
That's what angel dust is PCP, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I heard a story about a guy in the Quad Cities who was on PCP and jumped out in front of cars and tried to pick them up with his bare hands.
Did he do it?
I don't know.
I've heard it makes you very strong and cool and attractive.
I wonder if it makes your arm like be able to stretch, you know, like the Stretch Armstrong guy.
I think you can. That's
okay.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, I know what I'm doing tonight.
I think you turn into a full-on shapeshifter on PCP. You can become anything you want. Yeah.
You know, this is really just an extraordinary conversation. I'm so glad it turned into this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the local. Should I?
Yes.
I don't know. Should we talk about local music or local cereal? Because I'm sure there's a local cereal somewhere.
Isn't Quaker Oats in Cedar Rapids?
Rapids.
Yeah.
Yep. They there are days where they make the berries, the crunch berries we were just talking about, and the entire downtown smells amazing.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Waverly?
No, I've never been to Waverly.
It smells like Strawberry Quick all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Do they have a strawberry?
I think
Quick
they do
factory?
make Quick there. Yeah.
Really?
But it's a great smelling little town.
Does it ever smell like chocolate Quick?
It just smelled the same every day. So I don't know if it was strawberry or chocolate, but Quick. It smelled like Quick.
Very interesting. I wonder if there's anybody that ever listens that's from Waverly. I would like to hear.
Well,
I'd like to get
Ben
him
Driscoll
on
listens, and he's from Shell Rock.
Okay,
which is basically Waverly-ish.
Shell Rock.
Shell Rock.
There's a town in Iowa called Shell Rock. Dude, that totally sounds like the Ninja Turtles or something.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah. No, that's where Conniption Fit is from. Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, that's
Conniption
Ben.
Fit.
Ben is Conniption
They were kind
Fit.
of like. They were kind of like a Operation Ivy ska type thing. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
so
let's
anyway.
do it. Holy smokes.
So the local review this week is from this project called Endless Reach. Brian Schnedler, who was also the singer of Trendy Bastard back in the day. He's since been in a few other groups like Wax Moth and Upon the Death Horse, which Upon the Death Horse was also started as kind of a solo project of his. Endless Reach, I gather, and I could be wrong. Sure, he's probably going to listen, but I think it's just him. So it's a solo project, and so you can find Endless Reach on Spotify. There's 2 different parts of we're talking about part 1 or volume 1. And there's also some singles that he did and also some videos on YouTube that if you just look up Endless Reach, like Muscatine or something, it'll bring that up. But yeah, this is really cool stuff. It actually kind of shocked me that he was doing this kind of stuff. Like the first song sounds something straight out of a John Carpenter soundtrack, like a film score. It's very synth heavy and kind of has like almost like an 80s sort of, also like 80s action movie vibe behind it or something, or sci-fi. I mean, think Escape from New York or really just, They Live or anything like that. But also clearly, he actually told me that one of the things he's always wanted to do was actually do the score for a horror movie. And so that's not all this project is. There's also like the second track really is just ambient droney type stuff, which is a little bit closer to his old project Upon the Death Horse. I'm not sure if he's still doing that. I know he's got another group that he does with Chris, the former drummer of Trendy Bastard, and I can't remember what that project is. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it totally reminds me of John Carpenter. There's elements of parts of it kind of have like almost like a, I don't know, like a Godspeed feel to it or something. But for the most part, I would say throughout the entire 7 tracks that are on this, the synth is definitely the most prominent instrument for sure. And it's really cool. If you're into, John Carpenter soundtracks, if you're into Godspeed, and I kind of struggle too finding other comparisons here. Eric, you might have some more insight, because I feel like you're maybe a little more versed in sort of like the genre that you would put Endless Reach into. But it's really, really cool stuff. Really awesome to listen to, and I'm glad that Brian is doing something like this. I'm very curious what your thoughts are about Endless Reach, Eric.
Yeah, excuse me. I loved it. I mean, absolutely loved it. And I'm amazed that I don't really know this person or their previous work. I've heard Trendy Bastard, only a couple songs or whatever. So, but this is really, really cool. And I think what makes it cool for me is that I am into various things that this explores. So in reality, there are a lot of different things happening here. So there is the synthwave element, which you talked about, the John Carpenter style stuff. But then we go into straight score music, which is a lot of piano, a lot of cello, things like that. And those pieces especially reminded me of like Charlie Clouser or even Trent Reznor, like Nine Inch Nails, especially the piano pieces sound quite a bit like the slower parts of some Nine Inch Nails things, like Something I Can Never Have or A Warm Place, things like that. But then we also go into straight like soundscapes, atmospheric soundscapes, which are closer to, I don't even know, just the ambient elements of horror movie scores. And so I think this is really well thought out, and I think it's really mature, and I think it shows a real love for this kind of music and this kind of atmosphere, and a true understanding of what they're doing here. I think that sometimes people get stuck in like a synth wave kind of thing. Like I do synth wave, and then every song sounds just like Escape from New York. You know, every single song is just an arpeggiated synth bouncing around while you turn the filter, like Stranger Things. You know, that's just what you do. But this isn't like that. This really moves around, does a lot of things, and I think it's great. I wish, honestly, the only way I can put this is the kind of music I've been wanting to hear on a local level for a really long time, and it hasn't up until this point. And obviously I don't know what everyone's doing out there, so I should say in my experience up to this point I haven't heard anything presented that was this well done. It's not noise music, it's not improv, it's not someone just screwing around with electronics. Like, this really is well thought out, could be dropped straight into a horror movie right now without any of the cheesiness. It's just, I loved it. And I would say that if you are a fan of synthwave, soundscapes, horror scores, and I would say also some ambient elements of, like I said, Nine Inch Nails, things like that, you're really going to like this. And it's not afraid to let the songs just run their course and take as long as they need to take. And that doesn't mean that it's just on and it's boring. Like, no, it just has a feel to it and an atmosphere, and it lets you live inside it for a while. And I was blown away by it. I can't wait to check out the Friends of Horror Volume 2, and I can't wait to hear more of this. And I wouldn't mind playing a show with Endless Reach and starting a whole new scene. So just throwing that out there. So yeah, I really loved it. Yeah.
You heard it first there, Brian. You're listening. That was quite the compliment from my comrade, Erik Whitaker. It really is really good stuff. Really good stuff. I mean, I was blown away. I actually sent him a message and was just like, the synth sounds you're getting are freaking amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he told me what kind of synth he had, and I can't remember what it is. But I
need to know.
Well, I kind of think maybe we should have him on the show.
Okay. Yeah, well, that'd be sweet.
And then I think you would have a lot of questions.
I think I would too. Nice.
And so, Brian, Sned, from Trendy Bastard and Wax Moth and Upon the Death Horse and Endless Reach and that other band with Chris, also formerly of Trendy Bastard, you need to come on the show, man. And we're not going to make it happen. Only you will. It's your responsibility. No, I'm just kidding. I've already talked to him about it. He totally wants to be on. So
that'd be great.
We are going to actually have Brian on the show. I just don't know when. This is absolutely fantastic stuff. Yes, like Erik said, you're into all that stuff, John Carpenter movies. Mm-hmm. I didn't really think about the Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, if you listen to it again, especially the piano tone is, I don't know if that's and hopefully this isn't offensive, but I don't know if it's a preset sort of just a piano sound, but it sounds almost just like the Something I Could Never Have piano, which is phenomenal. I mean,
that's off of The Fragile, right? Or what's Something I Can...
I think that's
what album is that off
Machine.
of? Is it something I can never have?
Yeah.
Okay. I am the most uneducated Nine Inch Nails fan. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know what Closer is on.
Yeah.
I know what Head Like a Hole is
Yeah.
on. I guess I do. I am pretty familiar with the first like three, like particularly Pretty Hate Machine, Broken, and Downward
Yeah,
Spiral.
that's about where I kind of stopped. I know that the other stuff is great, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. So
I really like the record Year Zero. I think that was a really good one.
Cool.
Very, very
Maybe
good
I'll
one.
just make my way through that discography sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would probably definitely be worth your time. Have you listened to the Ghosts?
No.
Instrumental. Oh, you would
Okay.
love that stuff, Eric. You would love it.
Well, maybe I'll start at the latest record and go backwards.
Yeah. But
Why
I mean,
not?
why not?
What's the diff?
Why not? Yes, that's a good idea. Actually, maybe I should do that sometime with a band. All right, so social medias, man. Let us know how we're doing.
Yeah, please. I asked a bunch of questions and I didn't get all that many responses. So,
But on the other hand, thank you all for listening
Yeah.
and supporting the podcast. We know you're out there because we see the downloads happening, so that's awesome.
we can see the light shining
I'm
off
so
of your
happy.
eyes in the darkness.
We are you. But anyway, yeah. So my name is Dan_the_ruler, and Eric, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
let you
it's
say your name
Erie
because I always forget.
_Eric_Whitaker.
And those are both
Yeah.
on Instagrams, and plus we have an Accelerativ Thrust official Instagram. Feel free to send us a message through that or comment or whatever you want to do. Facebook, we also have an official Facebook, and there's also still the Accelerativ Thrust YouTube channel, and that really haven't done anything with
we'll
that
be
for
hitting
3
that
months.
harder as time goes on.
Yeah, well,
Summer's almost here.
we're gonna bring that back. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna go back to the old days.
Yeah, just
The
like
old
Back to the
days. In the
Future
good old-
3.
Yeah. In the good old days, they didn't have YouTube. They had one channel on the TV, and then the rest snow, complete snow.
Oh, I miss snow, kind of.
So do I. Though you could get some really great sounds.
Speaking of
from
snow, we have a guest next week that has nothing to do with snow.
Well, I don't know. His music sounds kind of cold
Yeah,
sometimes.
kind of blizzardy,
Snowy.
Yeah, but yeah, Brian
Are we
Barr is
talking
going to
about
be
Brian
next
Barr?
next week with us.
Brian Barr. From a
From
Seath.
a Seath, and also from Brian
Ladies
Barr.
and gentlemen, I better also, yeah, that's true. He is from Brian Barr. There's a lot of stuff that we'll talk to Brian about. Actually, I need to send him a message and remind him about that because I haven't.
Maybe that won't happen. Maybe I was lying.
Yeah, who knows? We'll see. But if not, you can definitely guarantee more bullshit from our mouths.
For sure.
So, thank you for listening. And you all have a good day, afternoon, night, whatever it is that you're listening to this podcast, whenever. Goodbye.
Bye.